Hey everybody, I am joined by Michael Southerland, FX artist and 3D generalist. Michael is a Houdini wizard with years of experience working with agencies like Man vs. Machine, Already Been Chewed, and brands like Coke and Topo Chico, where he utilizes generalist skills to be adaptable based on the client's needs and just bring more to the table in general. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I followed you on LinkedIn probably 5 years ago, honestly, man, back when you were working at Telegraph. And just seeing in and outs of you posting and so forth and just seeing all your work, it's really just been an awesome journey to just watch from a very broad view. But for all the details, can you tell us a little bit about your career journey?
Yeah, unorthodox, I guess is a way to put it. I coming out of college, I had a music degree, and then the first job that I had was at a church doing worship ministry stuff. And while I was there, I was able to gain some experience in After Effects, some 2D stuff. The guy before me was doing some 3D and some 2D for their motion graphic pieces and whatnot. And so while I was there, learned a little bit of that, had some crappy words coming in with no easing and whatnot. And it eventually got to the point where I was like, okay, I want to do some, 3D looking thing. So got Element 3D and After Effects. And then eventually, a couple months later, I was like, okay, I want to do the full thing. Got Cinema 4D, started doing some stuff in that, rendering some stuff. And then went, essentially kind of just wanted to level up until a buddy of mine that was in the ad space at the time, Billy Ivy, still a great, fantastic writer. He was like, hey, I think you should do this full time. I think you should, try to find some work in this and I'll help you. So a really awesome opportunity to be able to come onto the team with Telegraph. And Shannon Clark was amazing, mentor, still is amazing mentor, and was a part of the team at that point, brought me on and just kind of took it from there. It's been, I guess I was at Telegraph in 2020 till 21 maybe, and then went freelance. And ever since then, I've just been trying to do, I don't know, the next cool project, meet the next person or the next production company, and got some weird connections and wild timings and whatnot, but that's just kind of a brief overview.
That's awesome, man. And I love that you talked about how it was an unorthodox journey, because I feel like generally becoming a generalist is an unorthodox journey. And I love how it started with just kind of you being like, hey, I want to try the next thing. This is what's interested me. And then you're slowly advancing there from being in After Effects to motion graphics to being hey, I'm doing Element 3D. And then you're jumping into full on 3D, things like that. One of the things I love is I feel like Houdini is just this massive software for a lot of people that's hard to kind of wrap your head around at times. What was your process like learning that tool?
It was, for most people, super daunting because, I'm not necessarily a huge coder. I did some code in the past with just some website stuff, but I don't know many languages. I don't know much about syntax just in general for anything. And so it's hard to kind of get into that space because it feels like it's so much of it is math based, is code based, is just kind of a huge, big sandbox that you don't know what to do with. But I had right when I went full time, I had a couple projects and then it was just kind of silent for a little bit, which freelancers know just happens from time to time. And so maybe it was an election year that year. I don't think it was, but still, I just started off and I thought, if I'm going to do this full time, if I'm going to want to work with the best of the best and try to learn from them and glean from them, I'm going to need to at least be in the same program that they're in. And at that time, I saw a huge kind of shift from Cinema 4D to Houdini in my needs. And so I took some time. I was like, okay, hey, I'm going to do a full project that's just Houdini and just learn it. I'll figure out something that I wanted to do. And so I saw an ad by Buck that was a Truly ad, and it was amazing. The seltzers, it was an amazing ad. And I said, okay, I'm just going to set off and I'm going to take however long it takes, month, 2 months, 3 months, learn Houdini, but do it with something to like a big commercial spot to have at the end to say, okay, I can do this. And so I ripped that ad from Buck and I said, okay, I'll just make it into the Topo Chico thing. And so that's the Topo Chico ad that you see is just like a kind of a shot for shot remake of this other thing going, I need to learn how to do this. So let me see how I would do it. And watching the tutorials and doing all this sort of stuff, it's like, I feel like that ad kind of allowed me to know that I knew that I could do it. Does that make sense? Like I knew that I had the like, creative ability to be able to do something like that, but the technical ability wasn't there yet. So I needed to prove both to myself and to, I guess, future clients, this is something I can do. And I used that time to learn Houdini and get a base of what Houdini is, because it does take so long to just like, I went from Cinema 4D where there's just like a shelf tool that says box, or sorry, wait, is it cube in well, whatever it is. I couldn't figure out, I mean, it took me an hour to figure out how to make a box in Houdini, just one cube. And it was like, because I was using the wrong, I typed in square or cube or whatever it is, and it wasn't popping up. So anyway, it's just, you can imagine how many different things I needed to translate from Cinema 4D over, and I don't know, all the things. So
I think that's interesting for sure, because you're right. Even if someone's going from like Cinema 4D even to Blender or something like that, there's just such a change in the way these tools communicate to you about how to do something that it's very easy to get even fundamental UI things mixed up when you're in there, about how to like move around the camera, things like that. And I love the fact that you essentially just looked at a really cool video and said, hey, I'm just going to reverse engineer it, and that's going to be one of my ways I learned the tool. And I challenge anyone that's listening to us to do that. Find a cool piece that you like, reverse engineer it, because you'll pick up so many things from doing that about how, the original creator thought, how the team would like source assets, things like that, because chances are they're not going out and modeling their own pineapple, right?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, there are like with production companies like Buck or like any of the, they're probably hiring an artist to be able to do it. But, it just depends on the level that you're at. There's plenty of pineapple assets you could just go and buy. Like, we don't need to spend time and money on that. We know the one that we have, and we'll go get it and bring it back. So
especially if you're not a 3D modeler, like if that's not what you want to do, don't spend time doing it.
Right.
That's awesome, man. So what I also love about your whole entire career journey as well is just how you focus in on being a generalist, and how that's been just a huge asset for you when it comes to being adaptable. I'd love to learn a little bit more about how being a generalist has just helped you over the years.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of marrying of all the tools that I've been able to kind of accrue over time. Like 3D kind of is the culmination of that, because in a lot of ways, especially when you're doing photoreal stuff, you have to know how physics works, how real life works, how light hits things, why wood looks the way that it does, why you can feel something before you even touch it, kind of thing, with just your eyes. It's all about knowing why that is, and Photoshop, knowing Illustrator helps with that. Knowing how to light in real life is a huge thing. How to learn from amazing cinematographers, how to, what different lenses mean different things. Composition, motion graph, like the actual motion of it is a huge portion as well. Because, if I'm making things that look real, if I'm making things that I want to look real, they need to move in a real way. So why does that happen? How does it, so being a generalist has helped me essentially be good at my now specialist job, I guess, in like more sim stuff, more Houdini, whatever stuff. Because now I know lighting aspects. I know like what I need to be able to do in the simulation to be able to give to the lighting artist or to whatever. So it just kind of trickles down and I guess rounds me out as an artist, because I can speak into a bunch of different stuff, and that's, I think, I don't like talking about myself. I try to stay as humble as possible, and but I think that is definitely something that I think is kind of unique about me, in a sense of like, I feel like I'm a specialist that has a generalist background, which is I don't know, maybe a cool way to put it, but maybe I'm giving myself too much credit.
Nah, man. Hey, this is your interview, dude. It's all about you. But I love that you bring up, just not even the idea of being like a generalist in the sense of, the Adobe suite. It's also just knowing how to talk to other people in the production pipeline as well. Yeah. And, just knowing like, I'm not a photographer, but I know what a key light is. I know what a rim light is, fill light, staging, things like that, and be able to communicate that to other people in the pipeline to ensure that when it's handed off to someone else, they know what they're even getting from you. And that's not something that, while it can be common, it's not something that's always appreciated. And it's also something that's not always there when working with someone who is just a specialist who does not know anything past that. Like if you're only doing fluid sims, you don't know anything else, and that's all you know, then it can be a bit challenging. But on that note as well, your fluid sims are incredible, man. I love watching your fluid sims. I love watching your work, with the Coke bottle and so forth. What got you into doing that kind of work specifically?
It's always out of necessity. I think everything that I've been asked to do up until this point in Houdini has been, other than that like Topo Chico stuff, has been, hey, this client or this friend or this whatever wants X, wants a flower growth thing or wants a, whatever. That's just kind of like, all right, I don't know really how to do that. I've done something like it before, or maybe seen somebody. So I'll go and I'll learn how to do that. And then I'll get hired for a couple more projects because of that thing. It's like one of my first big jobs freelancing was making a ton of flowers and growth and stuff for Droga 5, and they were working for, I guess they're bought by Accenture now. I don't really know how the tree works, but they hired me to do some visuals for a concert thing that they were doing, and at that point I was like, yeah, I'd love to do this. I've not done anything to this scale before, but I got the bid, and so we went for it, and that was a fun experience. But then after that, I got more plant growth things because I had that in my tool belt. So it just seems like I kind of get my feet wet on one thing, and then because I get the next iteration of so it's just kind of building on top of each other. I even forgot what the question was, but hopefully that answers it.
No, that was a great answer. And one of the things I'd love to learn a little bit more about is specifically when you're taking on projects that, like, for instance, you mentioned, getting more plant clients, things like that. The first client, were you going into it, like, are you nervous? Or are you like, hey, I haven't done this before, I got to figure this out? What's kind of the process?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I gotta think back. The process was stressful because it's this, I know that I can do this. I've not done this like exact thing before, so I want to make sure that I'm delivering for this client because it's like a big step. It's, I want to make sure that I'm doing right by not only the production company, but also the client and getting what they want. But then you're faced with technical difficulties, or you're faced with render problems, or you're faced with all these things, like the nuances of just getting into these bigger productions, these bigger avenues. And I just, it was a lot of I guess just a lot of learning in those moments. Like, I think I definitely missed the mark on a couple of things with that first one. But I think I failed upwards. And I guess by the testament that I keep getting hired, it was a good thing that happened to me. Like, I got my feet wet, but I also, gleaned a lot from it. It wasn't like a picture perfect thing at first. And there were, it was a hard deadline because it was a concert thing, but client kept pushing and whatever. And I had to cancel a vacation because of it, because they needed some stuff done. And I was like, I don't have enough time to render it. I'm going to have to stay back and do this sort of stuff. So it's, yeah, it's a lot of learning at the front end, but I think that as long as you fail upwards, it's a good thing in any form of capacity.
The follow-up question I have now is, when you're taking on these kind of projects, do you typically just take on one at a time and you're really focusing in on it, or is it a case where you're maybe take a large one, you have several small ones just in the background that you're working on? what's kind of like your preferred way of just, spreading yourself out on clients and so forth?
Yeah. Well, when I first started out, I was taking clients and I was just kind of a one-man band situation where I'd do the full thing or I'd, whatever. Now I've become more of a hired gun when it comes to certain things, flower growth or simulations or whatever, which is really fun for me because then I get into the nitty-gritty of it. When I do the one-man band thing, I can't really... my abilities become a little bit hindered just because I'm one person. So I time is kind of against me at that point. So it becomes more of like my spots become more focused and less like really detailed and really awesome and whatever with the fluid sims that can be a little bit more blobby rather than like really nice and fine tuned just because I'm running out of time, that kind of thing. Now, I'm hired and can get more into the nitty gritty of each of those things because there are other people, there are lighting artists, there are, I'm getting assets from other people and then I'm just kind of a part of the pipeline, which I never thought I would like to be a cog in the wheel, but it is nice to be a part of something bigger than me and to be able to be a part of that like next level creative. And so in terms of my process now, when a client comes to me and wants something and I'm just the only artist on it, I now have like a bit of experience knowing that, okay, I'm not going to be able to do everything that I'm doing in these other projects, like to the quality that I want to. I got to kind of reel them back a little bit. And so that I can get the client what they want in enough time. And so it's a bit of like, I like being, the sole proprietor because then I kind of control a lot more, but I also like being the like small cog in the big machine kind of thing. Because you can do, I don't know, cooler looking stuff as more people are involved, as more time is used, that kind of thing.
I love it, man. So you've been doing 3D work for since 2019, at least on your LinkedIn wise. Has it been a little bit before 2019 or is that when it started?
Yeah, around there. I started the church in 2016, 2017, I think. And then I started doing 3D probably a couple of years into that. So yeah, 18, 19, something like that.
Okay, awesome. So, clearly you've been around for a while. You're very good at what you do. When it comes to talking to clients and discussing rates, how do you overcome objections when it comes to like your price tag, things like that? Man,
that's a really good question because it just, with every medium, it's going to be a little bit different. And especially with 3D animation, it's few and far between where you find clients that are willing to pay for it, if that makes sense. Because it's really hard to pitch. I remember the first time that I was at Telegraph and we were like internally talking about something and there was a couple people in the room that like, they didn't know what I was talking about. Like I was trying to explain it to you. I was like, how this car looks like it's real? It's not. I'm doing that. That's like fake. And they're like, I don't understand. So it's especially when you're pitching to clients that are not creatives, that are not creatively minded at all. And you're like, hey, like, let's do this really cool ethereal, bottle sim where it like spins in and whatever. And they're like, how is that going to help us sell more Topo Chico? Whatever it is. I didn't pitch to them, obviously. But like, when it comes to that kind of thing, it's really difficult to pitch 3D animation in an ROI kind of a mindset. And my wife is a marketing director, and she's kind of like even like telling me and teaching me how I need to be marketing that to the people that are going to have enough money to be able to let me do the things that I want to do creatively. And so overcoming challenges when it comes to rates is really just the making them buy in on the idea that you have in your head, because every creative is like, they set out when they're pitching something, they're like, I know exactly what this is going to look like and I think this is going to be awesome for you. But the client has no idea what you're thinking. All they want is to be, maybe they want some cool looking creative as well, but what they want is their business, their company, their whatever to be more prosperous at the end of your creative than it was at the beginning. And if that means that, it's a small motion graphic little thing with some live action just on a still whatever, like a still shot of a can, then awesome. That's what they need for that 6-second, Instagram or TikTok ad. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting problem to have, because, I feel like the more I get into the nitty gritty, the more that I realize that I need to be a part of these bigger productions, because the small company in Birmingham does not need a fluid sim. They don't need a RBD. They don't need the like top of the top line, and they don't have the budget for it, because their superiors don't understand. And what does it matter if it looks 90% good, 95% good, 80% good? They just want, at the end of the day, they want some more money. They want, to be able to like sell some more product. And that's what we as the creatives are supposed to be doing. It's a catch-22, because like us as creatives would just want to like sit in our rooms and do stuff, and people just pay us commission to do whatever we want to. But that's not reality a lot of the times. I mean, 99% of the time. So
I know you talked a little bit about how nowadays you kind of see yourself as a little bit more part of the total process rather than being kind of like the one-man band. Mm-hmm. Do you prefer working with agencies? Do you prefer working with like direct to client?
I think that now I like working with production companies more than I do with like straight to agencies, or straight to the client almost never happens anymore. I did that a couple of times. I guess it was 2 years ago, year and a half ago, something like that. But now it's just mostly agencies and production companies. But in terms of like between the two of those, I think the production companies I like because they speak the language. And there have been agencies that I work with that do speak the language, because they're like 3D, like specialized, like they know what they're talking about when it comes to 3D. But normally when I'm talking in production, or when I'm hired from a production company standpoint, they know, because they do it. They're hiring me to be a part of the team. That's what they do. And so the language barrier is softer. The work is normally more satisfying and creative, I guess, because it's hard for I would imagine it's hard for a person that swims professionally to be able to talk to somebody that runs professionally, and the same, does that metaphor might not stick as well as I wanted to, but that's just kind of the way that I think about when you're talking about like a motion designer, or you're talking about like a layout designer, or a logo branding designer, or a cinematographer, or a DP, or when you're talking to those people, and they're coming up with creative ideas for 3D, like, oh, it'd be cool to have this. They're not thinking about the technical aspect of it, and so a lot of things can be fallen in the wayside in translation, just word to word translations, and so then you have technical problems from the get-go, but that normally does not show up when it's a production company that specializes in the 3D space. And so not having those headaches of the translation is, I think, what I am more and more attracted to as I continue to grow, I guess.
And I love your metaphor about professional swimmer versus professional runner and how they communicate, because you can even look at it from the side of like someone who designs websites, the visual side of it, and then they have to toss those over to the person who's going to code it and implement it. And it's important to know how to talk to them, because, hey, designer hands off into the coder, and it's just like super complicated. But to designers, and they're going, this is really basic Illustrator stuff. I don't understand what the issue is here.
Yeah.
It causes issues. It causes friction.
Exactly.
So, do you have any tips or tricks for anybody who is looking to get in front of those production studios, those agencies, and so forth to get work?
Well, I think what I've found, and I'm not gonna sit on a podcast and say, oh, this is a blanket like 5 easy steps to get your first job, whatever it is, because it's so like, I think overall it's relational. whatever you're doing, and the more that I get into just life in general is just relational. People want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they also want to know the people that they're working with. So, don't take offense to when you get the no's. Don't take offense to when you don't hear back from production companies. Keep asking, keep sending out the emails. But most importantly, I guess make sure that your work is actually objectively up to a standard. Because subjectivity is, you can talk about subjectivity all day, but when it becomes to like an objective technical like goal, if you're just starting off and you don't have any of if your portfolio doesn't look like the thing that the stuff that they're making, then they're probably not gonna. I mean, that's the tough reality. They're not gonna hire you if they can't trust you to make the thing that they're making. And so if you don't have a portfolio, if you don't have stuff that looks like that, then you're probably not gonna get the job. So I think that I would just say, like, a tip is keep pushing, keep learning, keep striving, do the thing that I did. Maybe like, try to emulate, try to copy somebody that you really want to be a part of, because what is the saying? Good artists copy, great artists steal, kind of situation. Like, you're not making any money off of it, but maybe you can, take a little bit of time and piecemeal it over a few months, and then you have that piece on your resume, on your website, to be like, I can do this. And a production company will go and they'll look at your reel, they'll look at your website, and they'll say, oh, okay, cool, I've seen something like this before. Okay, he knows how to do, or she knows how to do whatever, blank. And then that's when they can have full confidence in you to say, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, and they can bring you on. I don't know. It's kind of a twofold, I guess. Like you've got to get in the door with the technical aspect of it, but you also kind of have to be a team player. You got to be somebody that somebody likes to work with. And I hope that I'm easy to work with and a good team player. My pessimism kind of like settles in a little bit, but my wife tries to tell me, like, hey, assume positive intent and all this sort of stuff. But hopefully I'm an easy person to work with. So that's what at least I strive for. I don't know.
And I love that, man. Because I definitely feel like sometimes people are like, hey, network's what matters. Or sometimes they're like, hey, the quality of your work what matters. It's really a combo. Network opens the doors, and then how easy you are to work with, plus how good your work is what keeps you in the house.
Right. Exactly. And even if your work is a little bit lower on the standard, if you're like a pleasure to work with, then you might continue to get some conversation in the door, and as you grow, as you get better at it, that kind of thing, and you can reach out to those people and whatever. So
I love it, man. So let's switch gears though.
Yeah.
I gotta know, you've done projects over the years, like 6 years worth of projects to be like, in fact, but what is your favorite project you've ever worked on?
Yeah, probably my favorite project. I'll give a 2-part answer. My first favorite project of the ones that I've done was for Disney. I did some 3D animation and some liquid sims and some stuff for their Happily Ever After fireworks show. They had some projection mapping on the castle, and that plays every single night with the fireworks show, and they wanted to extend that down Main Street onto the 4 buildings that are down Main Street. And so I got to be a part of the team with MDSX, the production company MDSX out of Orlando. And that team is amazing. And we essentially took what was on the castle and then brought it to life onto the streets. And so I had to design all the stuff, had to do 3D modeling and a bunch of different stuff, and then liquid sims and whatnot. And to be a part of that and to be able to go see that in person was, just one of the more wild experiences of my life. And it still plays every night. I have no idea how long it's going to be going. But that was an absolute amazing opportunity. And then my most recent favorite one is a spot that I did with Frame Store for Burt's Bees, where we were doing cherry blossom simulation, and then like kind of comes up and kisses them on the cheek or kisses them on the lips, that kind of thing. And it was awesome to be able to be a part of that. that team at Framestore. Kat May was working with me. She's a producer at Framestore. She was working with me at Telegraph, and then went there. And so she got me hooked up with some people that I really love working with, and continue to work with them for a couple of years, hopefully. So yeah, I think those are the two projects that I really, really enjoy from my what I think is a very short career, but I guess what you said was I've been around for a little, and it feels like I've only been here for like a month. But
I think you've been around for a while, man. I think at least anecdotally speaking, I feel like there's a pretty decent influx around 2020, 2021, where you had a lot of people started getting into 3D things like that. I mean, I don't think people really were diving into Houdini until like 2021, 2022, really. I mean, you had a lot of people who did, but like I wouldn't consider it to be like a mainstream, like we have to learn it from Cinema 4D kind of deal till around then. So I think you've been around for a while. I think you're on the cutting edge of it, man.
Trying to be, at least. I still think it's so weird how I'll go and you know, I'll be talking with a buddy, and that buddy knows another buddy that does Houdini work that I maybe saw their stuff years ago and was like, oh my gosh, it'd be amazing to, you know, to meet with them or to talk to them or whatever. And then just realizing how small of an industry it really is. Everybody knows everybody when it comes to this thing, this like small little pocket of people that do stuff. And so that's just weird. It seems, because it's so global and it's such a niche and an amazing thing, like it's weird to see that it's actually super small. And now I have like people's numbers that I can text and whatever. It's strange.
It's cool though, man. It's design world feels like a giant high school at times, and everybody just has like their tables in the cafeteria they like to sit at, and
that's
a good interesting, man.
Yeah. That's a perfect way to put it.
All right, buddy. That was Michael Southerland, FX artist and 3D generalist. Again, an absolute Houdini wizard who's worked with brands like Coke, Man vs. Machine, Already Been Chewed, and more. So make sure to check him out on LinkedIn at I Am Southerland, at his website, iamsutherland.com, and finally his Instagram at I Am Southerland, as well as the LinkedIn. So they're both the same. If you see one, you see the other. Awesome. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this interview.
Thank you, man. I love being a part of it.